and fight back for our communities. Examples of fighting for this change would be organizing meetings, voting, running for office, holding officials accountable for what's happening in your community, etc. The fight for environmental justice starts with us. Why does environmental racism matter? In the first article, Cancer Alley Rises Up, Levon, a resident in Cancer Alley, founded Rise St. James to stop Formosa Petrochemical Corporations, ran by a Taiwanese company that has been poisoning the land she calls home. The company wanted to add Sunshine Project that will include 14 facilities that will annually produce 13 million tons of carbon pollution. The fifth district has changed from residential to residential/future industrial. Since then, new industrial plants has been placed in the St. James area. The community has fought off one of the plants from the Sunshine Project with limited resources, which won the St. James community an EPA order that forced the state agency to fix issues associated with the facility's air permit. In the second article, Environmental Justice Atlas, Mossville, Louisiana is located right in the midst of Cancer Alley near Lake Charles. Mossville was one of the early settlement of free blacks since 1790s. The 1940s is when Mossville became one of the most polluted areas and the most polluted region and one of the most polluted states in the USA. Mossville is polluted with dioxins, which causes cancer with its highly toxic chemicals. Residents have more than 3 times the average of dioxins within their bloodstream, breast milk, and high cancer mortality rate, which results in side effects such as high incidence of ear, nose, and throat illnesses, central nervous system disturbances, and cardiovascular problems, as well as increased skin, digestive, immune, and endocrine disorders. Now you ask yourself this question: why does environmental racism matter? Louisiana needs to put their political goals on hold to focus on the health of the people. Louisiana's largest manufacturing export category is petroleum and coal products. Petroleum and gas revenue was about 16% of the state's government's income, which is why they decided to plant them in majority Black and poor communities since we're an easier target with no political power. No power equals oppression, which brings us to the current problem that we have today: environmental racism. Essential background information: environmental racism attacks the Black and poor communities. In 2002, Louisiana had the highest death rate from cancer. Cancer Alley is an 85-mile stretch along the Mississippi River. 10 industrial plants are planted within Cancer Alley. In 2000, Louisiana produced 9 billion pounds of waste. Let me introduce you to some of the residents in Cordon Plaza, which is 6 miles from me. These are Jesse Perkins, Marilyn Amir, LaDwina Hurst, who were all tricked into making the decision of buying homes located in Gordon Plaza only to find out that the land was built on top of toxic dump. Their hopes of living comfortably and passing down their homes to their children are tarnished. I wouldn't give it to a dog, Jesse Perkins says in his interview. This is Robert Taylor. He lives in St. John Baptist Parish, located in Reserve, Louisiana, only 39 miles from me, has been dubbed Cancer Alley by environmentalists because of Reserve's high concentration of air pollution that contains carcinogens. Taylor hopes to accomplish justice for the people dying and has already died from this incident. He wants us to know that if nobody is going to fight for this environmental problem, then he will continue to fight for a safer community. In 2017, Tremaine, New Orleans, only 8 miles from me, a family suffered from lead poisoning. Billison, a single mother, raised her 2 kids in a bad area with high killing rates. She tried her best to shelter them from the outside, hoping to keep them safe, but it didn't stop them from keeping in contact with the lead poisoning. This resulted in a learning disability amongst the 2 boys, which explained their struggle in school. And the sad part about it is not just them. There's more and more families experiencing the same problem in their communities as well. But just like Billison, they weren't aware. Among all the potential explanations for why impoverished people and people of color are more likely to experience environmental harms, the The most alarming theory is that corporations actively target these communities because they lack the resources and political capital to resist the citing of environmental hazards in their communities. The four main causes of environmental racism is the lack of political power, lack of affordable land, lack of mobility, and lastly, poverty. Discriminatory practices are the root cause of environmental racism, and it leaves the affected community in shambles fighting with all kinds of different diseases, especially cancer. Lack of political power is one of the advantages these corporations and governments have against the more vulnerable group. They put certain lax enforcements in place to make it harder for the oppressed group to leave. The lack of affordable land catches the eye of the vulnerable group because they are in poverty. They look for affordable housing and hope to gain a decent house with those deals, which will eventually lead up to the lack of mobility since the houses presented to them are the only houses they can afford in the state of Louisiana. What is the history of environmental racism? It started with Native American reservations. Because of the Indian Removal Act of 1830, the Indians were moved from Western land to lands that were too dry, remote, or barren to attract the attention of settlers and corporations. In the USA, United Church of Christ drew a connection between race and the placement of hazardous waste facilities. In Mexico, in 1984, the San Juanico disaster caused thousands of deaths and roughly millions of injury in poor neighborhoods. It occurred at the Pemex. The close proximity of the illegally built homes worsened the impact of the explosion. In Canada, indigenous communities such as the Aamjiwnaang First Nation continued to be harmed by pollution from the Canadian chemical industry centered in southeast Ontario. The remaining people of Eastern Europe mostly live in the poverty line in shanty towns or slums. What is environmental racism impact? Environmental racism impacts the health of communities affected by the poor environments, drives health disparities in Black Americans who faced higher rates of infant mortality as well as death from type 2 diabetes, heart disease, multiple cancers, homicide, respiratory problems, and HIV. The potential solutions for environmental racism is you could run for office, you can organize meetings, you could go vote, and you can hold officials accountable. The best solution for environmental racism is running for office or holding officials accountable for the systematic racism. The fight starts with us, and we have to be dedicated and willing to ensure that minorities are treated as equal. The people in power, like government officials and Trump, are the ones who disagree with this idea of environmental racism. They disagree because oil companies tend to be 25% of the state's annual revenue, that's Louisiana. And in 2020, the US boasted a combined market value of $1.27 trillion. Government officials are wrong because money can never be worth more than an entire community's health. They withhold so much power and become greedy, and the poor suffer. Now, let's reflect on this project. This project helped me prepare for college because now I have experience on research papers. I don't know how heavy research papers are often assigned, but it's great to have at least a feel for it. The thing I would do differently is picking another form of racism to talk about because as a Black woman, I am discriminated against in countless of ways. I believe in equal treatment and I want that for everyone. What I think I did well in my project is including pictures from my audience and being informative on my topic. The thing I need to improve on my what I need to improve on is my research skills. Shout out to Ms. B for making sure I had additional articles to help enhance my research topic. In conclusion, I believe that environmental racism needs to be put to an end. Too many African Americans and poor people are dying from this unjust and evil act. Majority of the polluted areas in Cancer Alley were known for the settlement of African Americans after the Civil War. Petroleum Industries thinks it's okay to plant industrial plants within the safety of communities without their permission. African Americans are dying at a much faster rate due to the pandemic brought upon us while they are fighting personal battles like cancer and other respiratory problems caused by environmental racism. Genocide is the intentional killing of a certain ethnicity or group. Corporations and the government knew about the toxic lands those homes were built upon, and they knew about the impact chemical corporations would have when implanting those plants within their communities.
Raven, wow, that was so good. 11 minutes and 31 seconds. I'll let Miss Isabel jump in.
Hi. Wow. I mean, I feel so grateful that I got to be here for your presentation. I learned a lot, and I actually am pretty familiar with this topic. And so thank you for that. I thought your delivery was impeccable. You seemed very confident and comfortable with the content. I could tell that you really did your research. It was extremely organized. And I liked the way that it was very well-rounded. You went from stating the problem to even explaining how cancer works. You know, that's something that's really important for people to understand, is like, you know, the fact that like these diseases just need, you know, the proper environment to grow, and that this is, you know, creating the environment for this to happen. I love that you brought the community in and that you brought local examples. That was very powerful because it brings it close to home and makes it feel relevant. Because I think a lot of times what happens is we as humans have a natural tendency to distance ourselves from things and to kind of like, it's like a survival instinct, right? We just want to think, oh, that's bad. I don't want to. So you know what, that happened over there, so I don't really need to worry about it. So when you put it in my front yard, that forces me to worry about it.
Right.
Yeah, I would just love to know, as you did the research, how did this make you feel? How did gaining this information make you feel?
It made me feel like, wow, this is happening. Who knows? I probably could have it because I'm so close to these environments. And then I go to school at Carver where Gordon Plaza has been dealing with this stuff. It makes me, it puts the load on me too.
Yes, yes. And that feels to me like it's, you know, very unfair. It always seems like the people being affected are also the people that are expected to change the situations. So I love that you emphasize the fact that it is not a poor people problem. It's a bigger problem. It's the responsibility of leaders and people who make these decisions. And I especially appreciated the fact that you understand that it is all rooted um, in money, right? In
Right.
And
Oh,
so understanding, do you feel that there is hope in the future for creating a new type of economic belief system?
I feel like me personally, I wanna run. I wanna like get into, put in the office and stuff. And I don't really care about the money. I want to fight for. I know my hope, my goals are for the people's advantage. So if there's more people like me running for office, then I believe that there's a change. There's a hope for change.
I
And if
believe it too.
hmm,
I said, I believe it too.
yeah, and if not, I know I'll try my best to do what I can because that's what I wanna. That's what I wanna focus my career on.
Great. Well, your teacher, Miss Anna, I know she has something to say, but she also knows of some wonderful organizations that are educating the public. And I think education is the first place to start so that people know what is even happening.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in real quick before it's already time for Brooklyn to go, but I want to say a couple things, Raven. One, I'm just wowed by your presentation. I thought you put so much effort and research into it. This is the best presentation I've seen so far this year, so nicely done. you do a really nice job of mixing in like passion and being very knowledgeable on the topic. I thought it was really powerful